So here's the campsite, and maybe I should talk a little bit about some of the gear. I've got the Backpackers Cache bear canister. Never had any issues with bears here, but I leave it away from my tent anyway. That is of course not going to stop a bear, but it'll be noisy enough that if one should stick his nose in here, I'll wake up and be able to scare it off. Up there is typically my latrine. Now the packers come in here, at least they used to, and they tie their horses up to some of these trees, but I don't see any fresh horse manure anywhere. I've got a big Agnes tent. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's called the UL1, Ultralight 1, or one person. Of course, I've got my cane rod made by me, generic rod case, and some really old REI trekking poles. Platypus 2-liter container, and these things are awesome. I actually went out and bought 2 because I misplaced the one that I normally use. And then I've got my Exos 58, which is a great backpack. Filtering, I'm using this little MSR filter. I've had this for several years. It works very well. I've got my Leatherman Skeletal here. I've got my Honey Badger, of course. For those that aren't familiar, this is Dark Timber Knives. Dark Timber Knives Honey Badger. 7-inch blade and change. It's great. I really dig the choil. It's a great woods knife. So I'm in the tent and everything's getting dirty. It's a great little tent. It's new to me. I've only had it for about a year. It's a little bit smaller than my the REI Chrysalis that I used to have. It's got some nifty features. It's got that little shelf up there. Put my wet socks. It's an interesting construction. It's just got a single pole running down the center, and then it branches out to two stabilizing poles, and then the tent itself, the structure is given by simply using guy lines, and you connect this mesh to your rain fly, and then you use a guy line to tie it down and pull everything apart. So it's kind of cool that way. I do all my hiking and trail shoes, so I use the Nike Terra Kiger 3s. I really like those shoes. I'm not too concerned about ankle support when I'm backpacking. I do wear these little Ace bandages, and you know, a sock liner so I don't get blisters. But I've got fairly strong ankles, and it's never been an issue. So these are so much lighter than a boot. Got my handy dandy MSR towel. Whoosh. A little chamois-like towel. I've got a Thermarest Neo Air, and it's a great little sleeping pad. It rolls up and it fits in one of these pouches, so that's really handy. I've got this REI Igneo, and you can see it's a waterproof, breathable down sleeping bag, and I forget what it's rated,
I've never had to zip it fully. I mean, it's too warm for what I used it for, and the only reason I got it was because it was one of the first breathable, waterproof sleeping bags to come out. But yeah, I mean, I will probably wake up tonight with the bag fully open in a drenched sweat. So it's a great bag. Maybe one day I'll need that warmth, but for a 3 season, it's a little overkill. Got my rig here for my Dark Timber Honey Badger. Leather attachments by Dave Raffensperger. Got some Survivor cord there. It's actually about 6 feet, the Survivor cord. Survivor cord's cool stuff. It's got snare wire inside, it's got monofilament, and then you can break it out into individual strands like you can with all paracord. I've got my ferro rod and of course the Kydex sheath, courtesy of Matt Nichols. The Kydex sheath is stock. The ferro rod is an add-in, as is the leather straps. And I've got these thigh bags. The idea behind these thigh bags is they take some of the weight off of my back, so I can carry all the weight on my hips. And the reason for that is I've got a bulging disc that's exacerbated by a Lyme co-infection. So each of these bags carries, or can carry, up to 5 pounds. This trip, I think I've got them both at about 3.7 pounds. Open them up. Now, some of the stuff I've already taken out, but I've got my rain jacket in here. I've got some extra batteries so I can charge my phone. What else do I have in here? I've got my gloves. Got some leaders. So that's in that bag, and there was other stuff in this bag as well. The sleeping pad was in this bag, as was the water filter. And this bag is mostly my fishing gear. Nope, I've got that the other way around. I guess my fishing gear was in this bag, and this bag had the Thermarest, as well as my first aid kit, my spot. It's an ancient spot. My my survival kit, which I couldn't tell you what's in it. I made it like 20 years ago, and I haven't opened it. So I probably should open it and update it. And then I also have, last but not least, an Anker battery pack, so that I can make these videos. If I wasn't doing the videos, I wouldn't be carrying all these battery packs. It's just too much weight. And then I have my clothes. I always carry a 800 fill. This actually might be 850. Down jacket. These are gloves. They're possum, so they're super light and super warm. Silk long johns. A knit cap. Extra pair of socks. I usually just use those to sleep in, because my feet get cold. and then a silk shirt, and then lastly, Polypro shirt. This is super. You can see those little squares. They create little air pockets next to your skin, and it's super warm. And at the same time, it's very light. A silk long john. So I typically I'll sleep in the knit hat and the silk t-shirt and the socks. The long johns are basically for if I get caught in a storm and the temperatures drop and I have to hike out in the rain. These are to keep my legs warm. I've had to do that once before, where I was actually here in the Immigrant, and on the last day I woke up and the temperatures had dropped like 20 degrees, and it was cloudy, then it started raining, and you'd be surprised at how much heat you lose through your legs. I mean, I had this down jacket, I had a rain jacket, I was dry, except for my legs. My legs were sopping wet, of course, and I was freezing. And I was freezing because I was losing heat through my legs. So, told myself never again. If you've never tried silk, it's great. It's super light. It's very warm. You know, not gonna be as warm as wool, but for the weight, it's extremely warm. And these possum gloves, these are sort of for an emergency, just to stay warm. So the other gloves, they were my fishing gloves, and they've got pull-back fingerless fingers, and they get wet. So if I ever get in a situation where the temperatures drop and I need to keep my hands warm, these are what I'm going to use. I've got this Petzl now. It's it's a really great headlamp. I think it's 450 lumens maximum, but it's you can adjust it, you can program it. It's got several different settings. I'm really happy with it, and it's rechargeable. I've got prescription polarized lenses. I like the amber color. Helps me see into the water really well. Most of my fishing gear is outside, but I've got some desiccant powder that I use in my dry flies. Outside, I've got my fly box. I guess I'll show that. So all the gear came to about 30 pounds, including my food, which is a little bit more than I wanted to bring in. Last year, I was able to bring my pack weight plus food down to 25 pounds, but that was only for a 3-day trip. And I didn't bring any of this emergency sort of warmth clothing. So I think out here in the Immigrant, I mean, I'm right now 15 miles from anybody. I think it's just a responsible thing to do to make sure that I've got some extra clothes with me. But yeah, it makes it a little bit heavier than what I wanted. I guess in addition, I've got a buff. I always wear the buff, and the reason I always wear the buff is because of the dust. These Sierra trails get really dusty, and at the end of the day, if I'm not wearing one of these, my lungs basically shut down. So I always carry some asthma medication with me, just in case. But this, seems to do the trick. I've got this soft shell, which I really like. And then underneath, I've got a thin wool shirt, and then I've got these ancient ex officio. I don't know. They're sort of like a quick dry material that I'm wearing. Two additional pieces of gear that I've not mentioned: my outdoor Crocs and my Simms travel waders. They don't make these anymore, but these are great. I've got 2 pair. They weigh only a pound, so they're great for backpacking. For a reel, I've got a Hardy Featherweight. And then I carry all my flies in Geez, I don't remember who makes this. It was like B&G Outdoors or something. Anyway, this is no longer made, but I've got a CNF design fly patch on the front. And then inside, CNF design fly box. And these are great because they've got these multiple leaf things going, and you can carry a bunch of flies. And I've got some extra leaders and such here.